Welcome everyone to today's session, Beyond the Hype, What's Really Working for Agentic AI in HR. I'm Sharath, joined by my colleague Mustafa. Together, we'll explore how Agentic AI is reshaping HR. Today is less about buzzwords and more about practical adoption, real use cases, and what's next. So what do we have in store for all of you today? We'll start by grounding everyone in what agentic AI really is, backed by a lot of research that Everest Group has been doing in the space. Then we look at adoption trends specifically in HR and who the leading players are. We'll also explore a lot of different use cases and what's real today versus what's aspirational. Finally, we'll cover how to avoid the hype trap and invest wisely. And of course, we'll leave some time for Q&A towards the end. So, Mustafa, you have been tracking the agentic AI space and specifically the HR use cases for quite a while now. So, I think it will be helpful to get a sense from you on how is agentic AI different from all the traditional or the tools that we have been using for the last several years in terms of automation, generative AI, etc.
Yep, thanks. Thanks for setting the stage, Sharath, and thanks for the context on this, right? So before, and definitely I'll answer this question as we move ahead in the presentation. But before I answer the question, I would want to flip the question to the audience, right? In terms of AI versus agentic AI, right? What is the view of the audience today on the call? And then we'll deep dive into how this particular area has evolved in the last few years and what is in store for us as we go ahead, right? So I think the poll has started and we are seeing a lot of responses already coming in. I'll just wait for a few more seconds till all the participants have responded, and then we can jump into the topic. Yeah, so based on the early results, I do see a lot of participants having a good view on what is the difference between AI and agentic AI. Okay, just a couple of more seconds and then we'll end the poll. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, as you can see, right, I mean, it's a complete mixed bag where we see folks who have a good view of what is AI versus agentic AI versus the ones who are saying that, hey, let's get to know more about it. So let's jump right into it without wasting any further time. So if you look at the landscape of AI, it has evolved from standard automation to agentic, right? And when I talk about automation, some of the early automation interventions started with robotic desk automation, which again automated relatively simple, repetitive, and rule-based tasks, right? So some of the examples in HR were automated welcome emails, right, which were triggered. Then came in robotic process automation. So this is again where automation was moved beyond single tasks to multiple tasks, right? So this is where multiple steps in an HR workflow started getting automated. For example, employee onboarding, right? So the employee onboarding journey from document verification to updating HRIS system access, right, to triggering the access to the new employee, right? So these kind of steps was automated as a part of a process. But the key thing to note here is humans were in loop by need, and these processes were even though they were automated, they were more reactive in nature, right? Then came in AI, right? So we started with narrow artificial intelligence, and the key thing to note down here is these were AI models based on machine learning, right? With predictive and classification capabilities. So this is where we started seeing use cases around resume screening models, attrition prediction models, internal job recommendations, right? So this is again more data backed and more machine learning focused. And then what we call internally the watershed movement in AI is when generative AI became mainstream, right? So these are models which were based on large language models. And most important thing to note down here is they were more context aware in nature as compared to all the earlier models we had seen across AI, as well as all the earlier automation interventions we had seen in the past. So these models had the ability to leverage large data sets in order to create content, synthesize content, right? And to generate insights from large data sets. So this is something which has become mainstream in today's day and age. And what we are moving towards now is agentic AI, right? So agentic AI are AI models which have the ability to plan, act, and orchestrate various workflows, right? So what the key difference here is the ability to take action. And here, when we are moving towards a more agentic era, human in loop are more by design rather than by need, right? So that is one of the key shifts that we are seeing as we are entering the agentic era. Now, I'll take a quick pause here, and Sharath, I have a question for you, right? Since you have close to a decade's experience in this space, and probably you have seen a lot of these technologies and these changes in action, right? What do you believe is the key? What is different this time around as compared to all the other technology interventions that we have seen in the past?
Yeah, pretty good question, Mustafa. So I would say the most important distinction here is, automation is rules based and process centric, but AI is data driven and learning based, right? And agentic AI actually blends these worlds with the ability to orchestrate, adapt, and act across processes. So it's less about those point solutions, but it's more about intelligent orchestration. So we have talked about single agent, multi-agent, and all those, sort of different
Mhm.
models that we have. So in an ideal scenario, I would, expect multiple agents to take ownership of certain pieces of work, and then a single agent sort of orchestrating those agents. So
Mhm.
with that sort of a setup, you can definitely orchestrate multiple things, take care of end-to-end workflows beyond what the automation solutions could handle in the past.
Yeah, and that's those are pretty great insight, and that gives us a good segue into our next section also. So when we talk about agentic AI, right, how do we actually define it? So here, what we have done is we have broken down in order to understand what is actually agentic AI and what are the maturity levels when it comes to agentic AI, right? We need to break it down into five key elements. Number one is the level of autonomy. This is again the ability of the AI model to make decisions and to take actions, right? Second is workflow optimization. So this is where this is the capability of these particular models in order to monitor, refine workflows, right, and make decisions on the go in order to execute these tasks. Third, and as Sharath was mentioning, collaboration among agents. So the one of the key elements that differs agentic from all the other automation and AI technologies of the past, it's its ability to collaborate within the agentic ecosystem, right? The ability of one agentic system to collaborate with other system, or one agent to collaborate with several other agents in order to get things done, right? That is something that differentiates agentic from past automation and AI interventions. Number four is reflection. And again, this is very key when it comes to agentic workflows. Reflection is the ability of agents to learn from past success and failures, right, in real time and implement them in all future workflows. And finally, one of the key elements of agentic AI is real-time adaptability. And this is more to do with how these systems adapt to changes in terms of workforce, in terms of organizational shift, in terms of broader organization strategies, right? So how external change in external events, how do these systems have capability to adopt to those external events and change in real time, right? So these are the five key parameters that we believe are essential in order to assess the maturity of agentic AI. And again, when we assess these models on these five parameters, we see five key levels of maturity, right? So again, we have seen bots in the past which have basic level of autonomy and some level of workflow optimization, and this is typically your RPA bots, right? Where there is human intervention, where it is more task based, and where it is more rule based in nature. Then we entered the era of AI assistance, right? So this is where some machine learning models were put in order to increase the level of autonomy. We saw some level of workflow optimization, again more human triggered in nature. Some collaboration with systems, but this is again more human triggered, more API driven pre-built collaborations, and then some level of reflection and real-time adaptability, but that is again based on the data sets that were leveraged to train these models. uh, After that is what we call as quasi agents, and this is actually where things start getting interesting, right? That this is where we enter the realm of agentic, where we see these systems having a good level of maturity across these parameters, right? Across autonomy, across optimization of workflows, ability to interact with various other agents within the system and outside the system as well, right? And having decent level of reflection and real-time adaptability capabilities as well, right? And beyond this is where we see true agents and self-governing agents. So when you move on the right side, as the maturity of these agents go up, along with that the amount of human intervention required to govern these workflows, to trigger these workflows, right, they go down, right? So that is this is how we see the agentic AI maturity levels across these parameters, and this is how we define how agentic AI is different from all other forms of AI and automation we have seen in the past, right? And again, since we have given a lot of details on this framework, I have a fun question for the group here, right? That when I'm now based on this context of the framework to assess agentic AI, where do you think we are currently when it comes to agentic AI solutions in HR? So again, couple of interesting takes on this. So 20 more seconds, and then we'll look at the responses. I don't want to reveal the answer here, but I see most of the participants hitting the bullseye in terms of the maturity level, right? And so when we look at where we are in terms of current maturity levels in HR when it comes to agentic AI, we are somewhere between 2 and 3, right? We are not even at a truly agentic level as of now. So here I would like to make a very important call out, which is again something we have seen in terms of technological interventions in the past as well. So the transformational impact of technology is often underestimated in the short term and overestimated in the long term. And that is why there's a lot of hype around this technology right now. There's a lot of hype around what it can do and the art of possible. But in terms of current adoption, we are just scratching the surface, right? We are just getting started. And while we see a lot of early use cases, which we'll highlight as we go ahead, but there's a big difference in terms of the hype that you see in the market around agentic AI to what is actually happening in HR around agentic AI, right? And we'll talk about it now in the next section, right? So this is where we'll compare what are the key upcoming use cases when it comes to agentic AI, right? And which are the areas within HR where we see a lot of impact of agentic AI? So yeah, I mean, if I take a broad view in terms of adoption of this technology, most of the adoption is centered around horizontal processes, at least now, right? Such as finance and accounting, customer support, IT. So these three again are the key use cases, key areas where multiple use cases are emerging. But HR is among these key use cases when it comes to adoption of agentic AI and when it comes to use cases around agentic AI. Right. So, I mean, when we break down HR and admin, right, into various buckets, that is strategy, value-added services, operational services, and digital HR solutions. So again, this is more in terms of bottoms up, where at the bottom there are more transactional HR processes, and at the top there are more strategic HR processes. So when we take this approach, what do we see? We see the prevalence of agentic AI use cases across all the four layers of this particular value chain. Starting right at the top, right, in terms of HR strategy and employee relations, we see agents building what if scenarios in order to align headcount, skills, cost, aligning with broader business goals. When we look at employee relations, we are seeing various conversational agents that answer HR FAQs. We are seeing agentic conflict resolution workforce with auto escalation to specialists, right? We are seeing more proactive policy guidance, which is delivered contextually to employee zero, right? Now, when we come down to value-added services, so again, this is where we see a lot of use cases emerging in areas such as learning, where we are seeing agents building personalized learning journeys, right, based on roles and skills of a particular employee. We see agents building continuous learning modules based on performance feedback given to employees. We see AI coaches and AI tutors emerging, helping employees in terms of real world scenarios, right? And again, when I come to recruitment, across the recruitment value chain, right from candidate sourcing, ranking, screening, scheduling of interviews, taking interviews, right? So across the value chain, we see agents playing a big role. Also, one of the key things to highlight here is we also see agents orchestrating these processes right from the start till a candidate is selected. Right, so those are some of the key use cases emerging in terms of recruitment. Now, when I talk about operational services such as benefits, we see agentic workflows helping compare policies, match employees to the best plans, and along with that, enroll employees into various benefit plans. When it comes to payroll, one of the most prevalent use cases that we see within payroll is payroll anomaly detection, right? As well as orchestration of the entire gross to net calculation process. These are some of the areas within payroll where we see a lot of agentic adoption taking place. Coming to employee data management, again, these are more transactional processes, and here as well we see a lot of auto validation, a lot of correction of employee records, more predictive analytics based on employee life cycle, right? Synchronization of changes across various HRMS system, across geographies, across functions, right? So these are some of the emerging use cases where in employee data management, and coming to employee data support. So this is one of the key areas where we see a lot of adoption happening in terms of query resolution, in terms of triggering actions based on employee prompts, right? Such as applying for a leave, such as applying for approvals, applying for expenses, right? So a lot of these HRSD platforms have production use cases where a lot of these use cases have been driven by agentic workflows. And finally, when I come at the bottom of the pyramid, so again, these are workflow, these are use cases which are more horizontal in nature and cut across all the other use cases. But we see HR analytics, that is again aggregation of HR data, ingestion of data, generating proactive insights based on changes in these data sets, right, via natural language. So these are some of the areas where we see use cases across HR analytics. And finally, knowledge management, right? So this is again more in terms of governance of these knowledge management system, updation of these knowledge management assets, and usage of these knowledge management assets across all the other use cases proactively, right? So that is where we see a lot of agentic use cases emerging, right? And again, in terms of prevalence currently across operational and digital HR solutions, one key thing to note here is that the technologies which we mentioned in the past already had a high impact in terms of these services. So the impact of agentic AI here has been more incremental in nature, right? And hence the prevalence is high. But one of the key differentiators we see is at the top of the pyramid. This is where actually agentic AI is proving to be a game changer. So, I mean, again, Sharath, I would invite you for a question here that what do you believe in terms of these use cases? What do you think is in terms of impact of agentic AI? What is happening differently as compared to impact of all the past technologies on HR use cases?
Yeah, one of the easiest use cases to visualize is the analytics example, because I've been seeing a lot of demos from people analytics vendors in the last 1 to 2 years. So what is really happening right now is there's a lot of focus on conversational BI, right? Business intelligence or conversational analytics. So the way it is happening is you'll have a chat interface, you'll ask a question such as, hey, share my attrition rate for the last 4 quarters and what's the trend been like. So previously you'll have to go to certain HCM tools or specialized people analytics platforms, and you'll have various dashboards where you'll have to go through it, manually figure out where the information is. Now with this conversational interface, what it is able to do is it can actually convert the question that we have, which is in natural language. It can convert it into whatever query language the system uses. You can actually query the information, bring it back, and generate the entire dashboard or the graph in front of you and give it to you as part of this conversational interface, right? And if you want, you can even ask questions such as, hey, what do you think are the top reasons why my attrition is going up? So it also has that autonomy and decision making and analytical prowess to figure out, hey, what are the drivers because of which my attrition rate is going up. So it can actually slice and dice. It can go through and see different departments, different business units, different levels of your organization structure. And it can also look at the employee feedback survey data, which will already be sort of aggregated as part of this, database. And you can actually correlate a lot of these things and give you insights like, hey, these are the 4 reasons why your attrition rate is going up. Why don't you go and fix some of these things? So it is going beyond just looking at dashboards, but thinking about, how can I give you exact information, what you're looking for in a conversational way? How can I give recommendations on how to fix some of those things? And also more about deep thinking, right? Can you
Mm-hmm.
really figure out why this is happening? Previously we would have had to go through different databases to figure out why my attrition rate is going up, but now some of these platforms are able to do it. And feel free to reach out to us. We have seen a lot of demos and we are able to help you if you have such questions on who are those vendors who are doing some of these things. What are some of the questions that we can ask? Definitely, we can support you after the webinar as well. Similarly, employee support and knowledge management is again a very frequently used agentic AI use case, right? Which Mustafa you will probably talk about it right now.
Yep, yep. So, again, employee support and HR service delivery ecosystem, right? This is where we see a lot of AI use cases emerging, and a lot of adoption actually happening on the ground, right? So, I mean, as a part of this session, we are providing all the whoever has joined this call complimentary access to our latest report on decoding the human resource service delivery ecosystem, right? So you can use the link in the chat to access this report. And again, as Sharath was mentioning, please feel free to reach out to us in case you have any particular questions or any pointed, you need any pointed understanding across any of the use cases that we talked about in the last section. Yeah, so with this, let me move on to adoption and take a more enterprise centric view here, that agentic AI adoption within enterprises, what we believe is likely to go through various phases, right? And the phase zero here is understanding what is agentic AI, right? And across the organization, across leadership, having a clear view of what it means for your particular industry and your particular organization, right? Also conduct a preliminary market scan in terms of what are the who are the key vendors, what are the key use cases adopted by peers, right? And highlight certain priority areas where actually AI agents can add value within your organizations. And after that, move on to the phase of experimentation. So this is where we see organizations establishing robust governance frameworks, data readiness and risk frameworks, even before starting pilots, and focus on quick ROI pilots, right? Demonstrate ROI through specific functions and establish a mechanism to capture these learnings through these pilots, right? Before the broader adoption even starts. After that is where the proliferation of these agents will take place across multiple functions. Right now, instances of these has been very far and few, right? But this is the next logical step where we see enterprises moving towards, where once you have piloted certain use cases, how to scale them across different functions, right? How to break these silos and make this change more at an organization level, right? And most importantly, how to measure the impact that they are delivering for your organization. And finally, the penultimate phase here is transformation, right? Where across the organization, how you can drive this change, how you can standardize various platforms and various vendors that you have to drive this change. And most importantly, how do you redesign people, process, and tech in order to unlock the full value that this technology has to offer, right? And again, a lot of them are more future looking in nature. But I would actually want to ask the audience here that, I mean, in your journey, where do you think currently you are when it comes to the adoption phases of these technologies? So again, I see a clear a picture emerging here, and a clear winner here when it comes to the phase in which most of the participants are when it comes to adoption of this technology. We'll just wait for a couple of more seconds to end the poll. Yep. So yeah, I mean, we see that a vast majority are in phase one, right? And again, in terms of the broader understanding that we get based on our conversations with enterprises and providers out there, that is the consensus that most of the organizations are either in phase zero or phase one, right? And phase one again, and very far and few are moving beyond that to actually unlock the transformative potential that agentic AI has to offer. So when we look at within enterprises, right, who are the key decision makers? Who are the key sponsors that we see currently emerging when it comes to adoption of these technologies? So one of the key insights that we have uncovered based on our assessment of the market is we are seeing BU functional heads, especially leaders such as CHROs, who are emerging as key decision makers within organizations when it comes to adoption of agentic AI within functions, right? And that is that this is because of two key reasons. One is they are close to the use cases which can actually be transformed using this technology. And number two, they are directly able to experience the ROI or the value that this technology is unlocking for the organization. But that being said, right, we also see CIOs, CTOs uh, playing the role of key enablers in order to enable scale, integration, and security when it comes to scaling these technologies within a particular function or at an organizational level. So at a broad level, what we have seen is while functional BU heads, while the CHROs are spearheading this change, but the CIOs, CTOs, operational teams are the ones who are providing the right scaffolding in order to build these use cases within organizations, right? And yeah, so that those are some of the key insights that we have unlocked. But here again, I would invite Sharath, and I have a question for you, Sharath. Since again you have been tracking this space since long, and you have been interacting with CHROs across the board since a long time. So do you believe this is the movement of the CHRO in order to become a pivotal driving force in driving these change across organizations?
Yes, Mustafa. So one of the topics that we are researching about is work intelligence or work transformation solutions. It's not really about workforce or workplace,
Mm-hmm.
but just about work. So the work that we are doing right now, or whatever we were doing in the last few years, is not going to be the same in the next few years. So for example, I might be doing a piece of work, let's say making a presentation or writing an email or doing some data modeling. And based on that, certain job roles are made, right? And job descriptions are made based on the work that we're doing right now. But maybe in 1 year or 2 year down the line, the work that the particular job is expected to do will be totally different because certain things will be done by agentic AI or AI in general, and certain things will be done by the humans. So there is this whole concept of understanding how work is changing, right? So there are certain
Mm-hmm.
tech platforms that are playing a role in understanding how each job can be broken down into tasks and what are the skills needed for each task, right? And based on that, they're able to figure out, hey, what should be done by agents, what should be done by humans. And once you sort of do this at scale, you can actually do the entire work redesign part of the picture, right? So understanding, how the org structure will change. What do you do with the existing, roles that are expected to evolve, right? So you need to upskill certain roles. You may have to move those people into some other role. So the different combinations that you'll have to play around. And there is also a conversation around change management and dealing with the resistance and so on. So HR is supposed to play a critical role in all of this, right? So understanding the job roles, how the work is being done. I don't think any other stakeholder in the organization, of course business leaders will definitely be involved, but business leaders and HR have the most visibility into how work is actually getting done in the organization. And when such a technology is being utilized in the organization, the first thing that gets impacted is the work. So first understand how the work is changing, and then accordingly you'll have to ensure seamless collaboration between agents and humans. So most of the CHROs that I talk about, they have just few priorities right now, right? The key priorities. One is ensuring seamless collaboration between AI and humans. The second one is understanding the impact of AI on the workforce and what does it mean for the future of the workforce, the roles, and the entire HR operating model as such.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Sharath. And um, on that note, right, one of the some of the key outcomes that we see are prevalent among buyers when it comes to adoption of these technologies. So the top three here are operational efficiency, increased productivity, and cost optimization. Right. So the key message that we want to drive here is enterprises need ROI, when they are focusing on agentic AI. Agentic AI is not just the next shiny object on the block for them, right? They are actually demanding ROI, and more than 50% use cases of agentic AI are focused on driving ROI or driving tangible returns for enterprises, right? But beyond that, we also see demand for outcomes such as quality and accuracy, right? Across payroll, across critical HR processes, right? Enhanced employee experience across the hire to retire cycle, right? And finally, scalability, right? That these solutions should have the ability to scale across the overall hire to retire cycle. So these are some of the key outcomes that we see buyers looking for when they are actually adopting these technologies. And I mean, on that note, now as we have discussed about number one, what is agentic AI and how does it work? What is the maturity levels of AI and what are the use cases in HR that we see, right? Uh, Sharath, why don't you tell us
Hmm.
who are the key players, who are the key providers in this space, who are leading the charge, right? And shaping up the market when it comes to agentic AI.
Yeah. Yeah, so to achieve these outcomes, enterprises rely on a growing ecosystem of providers, right? So the landscape can be categorized into four broad groups. The
Mhm.
first one is hyperscalers. They bring in scale and computational power. They provide the foundational platforms for building and running agentic AI, though they may not always offer domain-specific HR expertise. The second category is enterprise platforms, often large HR tech players. They are embedding agentic AI into their ecosystem, into their core HCMs, payroll systems. Their strength lies in providing integrated solutions that connect directly with your HCM's payroll or talent management, talent acquisition platforms. They bring in deep domain expertise. The third category is what I would call as specialized solutions. This is a category that is where the number of providers is increasing rapidly. These are focused providers focused on solving various enterprise use cases using AI, or these could be called as AI first or AI native providers as well. So they start with agentic AI or at least AI at the core, and then they try to identify certain use cases, let's say recruitment, automation, skills intelligence, employee support, help desk, or conversational analytics, so on and so forth. They are very specialized in the way they solve for some of these problems, and these are some of the most innovative providers, I would say, because they're not having that legacy baggage or traditional baggage. They're starting afresh and they're reimagining the process from the ground up. The last service providers, they bring deep implementation expertise. Some of them have their own agentic AI models and platforms, but they also help orchestrate across technologies, integrate with existing HR systems, and they also often deliver managed services to scale adoption. So the key takeaway for me, at least when I did the research, was when I talked to a lot of organizations, is that they don't rely on a single category. Instead, they will need to balance across these players, managing both innovation and integration. Over time, definitely vendor rationalization will become increasingly important as adoption scales and you know you start to see ROI, etc. Definitely, vendor rationalization will come into picture. But again, I've talked about some of the unique capabilities the category brings to the table. But Mustafa, you have actually talked to a lot of these providers and seen their products in action. So, are there any interesting anecdotes or interesting things that you want to call out that some of these providers are delivering?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, again, when we talk about these providers, and I'll start with focusing on hyperscalers, right? So, I mean, we have seen likes of Microsoft, who's providing base technology to a lot of these downstream providers, but at the same time integrating a lot of these capabilities within their workforce solutions, such as Microsoft Teams, right? They've started embedding low code, no code agent builders within Microsoft Teams to plug in some of these workflows. Again, a provider like IBM. is building something called Watson Orchestrate, right? Which is an entire library of multiple agents, as well as it gives you the option to build your own agents, right? For particular workflows that might be relevant to your organization, right? And then there are likes of Amazon, OpenAI, who are more focusing on providing the fundamental foundational model to a lot of these downstream providers to build their own agentic ecosystems. Second, when I talk about enterprise platforms, this is again a very interesting space when it comes to agentic AI, because these are mostly system of record platforms. So one of the key strategies that we see unfolding here from the likes of Workday or Oracle is within the system. They are building certain agentic workflows. For example, Workday is investing in Illuminate, right? And it provides tools to a lot of its partners, to a lot of its ecosystem providers, to come and build agents within the Workday platform, right? And on the other end of it, we also see platforms which are more focused on the mid market and the smaller sections of the market, right? Such as Dayforce deal of the world, right? They are also building agents, purpose built agents within their system, right, that can be deployed across HR use cases within the system of records. Coming to the next section, this is where we see a lot of innovative solutions coming in, right? So the specialized providers, what they are doing, and this is again something very interesting which we see unfolding, is they are looking at more specialized gaps in the market when it comes to solutions like these. Right. So I'll take an example of Lena.ai, which is more focused, which is a more focused provider for HR service delivery platform. But within that platform, leveraging its proprietary work LM model, it is infusing these agentic workflows. Right. Even if I talk about a provider like Emma, while it is building agentic workflows across areas such as recruitment, onboarding, benefits. One of the key USPs for them is they are also building an orchestration layer on top of it that helps orchestrate processes across various HR use cases. Right. And finally, when I talk about service providers, one of the key strategies, as Sharath was highlighting, is they are building agentic workflows within their orchestration layer. So when we talk about the likes of Accenture, Cognizant, Infosys, right, all of them have their own orchestration layer within which they are implementing these workflows, and they're targeting partnerships with hyperscalers and enterprises to take them to the market. So yeah, those are some of the interesting use cases across the provider landscape.
Yeah, thanks, Mustafa. So let's make it a little bit interactive. Let's keep the momentum going. So, you have learned a little bit about the different categories of providers. So, what sort of providers would you consider working with to build scale agentic AI capabilities? Is it hyperscalers for their, digital infrastructure strength, enterprise platform for domain expertise and embedded HR use cases? Specialized solutions for innovation, or let's say service providers or system integrators for integration and execution and managed services. This will help us understand the market sentiment today. Yeah, let's give 10 more seconds, 10, 15 more seconds. The responses are still coming in. Yeah. So I'm just sharing the results on the screen. So as you can see, enterprise platforms and specialized solutions, they are, having more mindshare with the attendees today. And understandably so, specialized solutions, they bring in innovation and a new way to look at certain things. Enterprise platforms, I believe most of you would have already implemented some of these as part of your HCM transformations and all. And there will be a natural way to sort of evolve that partnership to bring in more agentic AI use cases into the ecosystem. Well, that's great. Now moving on, we talked a lot about what agentic AI is, what are the providers doing, what are the use cases, but no story is complete without showing you the reality, right? So it is important to understand that HR or agentic AI in HR is not plug and play, right? So you need to understand, there are certain challenges that come with it, and I got a lot of questions on the cost aspect, ROI aspect, which is definitely one of the key things that you need to look at. Now, the other thing is data privacy and security. There were again a lot of questions on that. We are fielding a lot of questions on this. So you definitely need to understand how to encrypt certain data, anonymize certain data, have certain role-based access controls, have multi-cloud models, so on and so forth. Um, and then there are a lot of other concerns as well: organizational change, resistance, regulatory legal compliance, ethics, trust and bias, orchestration and integration with legacy HR systems. So definitely you need to have a plan, right? You can't get into this agentic AI revolution without having a plan, without having good design capabilities. So I would encourage all of you to sort of consider all these sort of constraints before you embark on this journey. Of course, this is no means a bottleneck. You can definitely solve for these and still get the ROI that is expected out of these solutions, right? And the other question that we usually get is, hey, am I ready to embark on something like this? So we have actually built a framework to help you visualize or sort of assess where you belong or where you fit in. So there are foundational gaps many enterprises must address, and there are certain readiness factors that you need to think about. So you can think about it in two axes, right? So one is organization capability from a data systems, digital process perspective. And on the y-axis is more about the leadership, the openness to change, the skills and literacy that you have in the organization. So, I mean, we can go as complex as we want, build a strong model, comprehensive model which is backed by data to figure out where each organization fits in, but that will be an exercise in itself, right? So what I would encourage is, sort of make it more digestible. So for example, data and systems maturity, you can just have low, medium, high. Similarly for AI and digital infrastructure, you have some maturity models or some scoring methodology for each of these parameters that will help you visualize or assess where you are in the journey. Right. So for organizations that are, let's say, trailblazers, right? So you have good organizational capability, you have good leadership and cultural readiness. So the focus should be on how can I scale the adoption faster? I'm willing to experiment a little bit more. I'm ready to fail fast, learn fast. Lead transformation, I want to be the North Star that all other organizations should look up to, right? So similarly, the way you engage with vendors, the way you think about deployment, implementation, cost, change management, all those things would change depending on where you are on this matrix, right? So this is something that I would encourage all of you to think about, when you are embarking on this journey, right? Mustafa, anything you want to add on the readiness assessment, since I know you've done a couple of projects for organizations recently?
Yeah. So yeah, again, I mean, the only thing I would like to add is in terms of readiness, we also see a lot of organizations overestimating their readiness, right? Across the two parameters. So it is important when organizations are assessing the readiness to adopt these kind of solutions to stay grounded in their approach and to take a more conservative approach. Uh, but yeah, I mean, broadly, it is the goal is to move in the top right bucket, right? And for the ones in the top right bucket, the goal is to be the North Star and make sure you provide the guiding light to the organizations, all the other buckets, right? And on that note, Sharath, actually, I have a question for you, right? What are some of the real world use cases that you have seen in terms of
Yeah.
organization. And this is again something which we also got as a question from one of the attendees, right? That what are some of the real world use cases where you have seen organizations adopt some of these solutions and bringing an impact?
Yeah. Yeah, so agentic AI, as we know, is somewhat of a newer concept, right? So maybe end of 2023, beginning 2024 is when we started seeing some implementations happening. So again, not a lot of organizations have scaled extremely, different use cases, different business units, etc. But there are a few that have caught our eye and that we have talked to, right? So, for example, I can share a couple of names, right? So, Hitachi is one of those organizations that have, let's say, 40,000 employees across five distinct business units, a shared services arm. And each of these business units were operating autonomously, right? So, they had different HR systems as well. For example, ServiceNow, SAP, Workday, ADP. So, each of them had different core HRIS systems. And because of this, there was a lot of fragmentation, not just in terms of tech, but in terms of processes, integrations between the tech, and it placed a lot of operational burdens on Hitachi's centralized HR team, right?
Hmm.
So I think they went with one of those specialized platforms that we mentioned in a couple of slides back. So they rolled out that AI agent across the hire to retire cycle across all the five business units. So they had a 3-year journey to transform their employee experience with this network of AI powered agents. So I think they looked at onboarding, training, growth, management, benefits, service delivery, offboarding, so on and so forth, right? So I think that is one good example, and they were able to get a lot of benefits as well. I think they had 30% drop, month over month drop in HR ticket volumes. Average query resolution time shifted from days to minutes because of AI's involvement. And there were a lot of reduction in the operational burden within the HR team as well. Similarly,
Hmm.
IBM is another good example. They are using their own Ask HR as well as Watson X Orchestrate. So they are the customer zero for them. So again, here also it was more around HR policies, knowledge management, which they were already using Ask HR, their virtual agent in the past. But with agentic AI getting infused into some of these solutions that they already built, they had better integrations with enterprise systems such as Workday, SAP Concur. They were able to trigger certain workflows in a better way. They were also able to personalize the responses that are coming that the questions are coming from the employees and so on and so forth. So they also have like 1 million plus requests every year that are coming through the agents, right? So agents are processing more than 1 million requests every year. So I think these are some of the examples. Of course, there might be many more, but these are some that caught our attention, right? Mustafa, there was one more question on cost, right? So one of the questions was around cost and the commercial models that enterprises can discuss with their platform vendors. So what are you seeing in
Hmm.
terms of cost, commercial models, any innovative way? How can organizations ensure that they are getting what they've paid for, as well as get the ROI that they are expecting out of some of these initiatives?
Yeah. So again, there are two parts to this. Uh, we see some of the existing models evolving in order to accommodate these requests, and we also see some new models coming into play. Right. So I mean, and I'll divide this into two parts. Right. First, if I talk about HR services, right, we see a lot of hybrid models coming in where enterprises are combining fixed cost with an outcome-based model, right? So whatever services are more table stakes and have been the vendors have been providing from the past, right? Those are more associated with the fixed cost. But whatever transformation providers are bringing in leveraging AI, agentic AI, right? It's more linked to the outcomes that they are driving. So that is one of the key things we are seeing. Also in services, one of the innovative things we are seeing is from FTE based to a more agent based kind of a pricing. coming in the market for various use case based agents within HR, right? And if I talk about platforms, there are multiple commercial models which we see evolving. One of some of the most prevalent model are consumption based model, where again based on the number of conversations, based on the number of API calls, these commercial models are structured. Second is also user based, number of users who are leveraging these features or these capabilities. Right, based on that they are charged. And also there is a subscription based model that we increasingly becoming popular, especially when it comes to platforms and solutions, right? So subscription of AI as a service on top of existing platform capabilities, or the AI module on top of existing modules, right? And one last call out would be in terms of platforms. We also see the marketplace model evolving in a big way, right? Where on top of the platform, these platform providers are building a marketplace where enterprises can pick and choose, right? Which are the AI integrations or agentic AI integrations they want to plug in along with their existing platform subscription. So yeah, I mean those are some of the interesting commercial models that we see emerging in this space.
Yeah, thanks, Mustafa. And yeah, just to reiterate, there is a complimentary copy of our HR service delivery report where we are talking about how agentic AI is actually disrupting HR service delivery, and we have also profiled some of the key vendors in that space. So please do click on the link in the chat, and you'll get a the entire report or the abstract for your consumption. And again, reach out to us. Mustafa and myself are available to answer any questions that you may have. And if there are questions that we haven't been able to answer today, we'll definitely get back to you with some point of view on that. But again, thanks a lot for all the engagement today, all the questions. Hope this was informative and helps you in your initiatives, internally. So yeah, thanks a lot for attending the session today.
Thank you so much everyone.